Hare Krishna. So let us start. Om Jnana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Shri Chaitanya Manopishtam Sthapitam Yena Swayam Rupa Pradhanayam Tadante Swapadantam Vande Shri Guru Shri Yuta Shri Guru Vaishnavas Shri Rupam Sahajatam Saharanam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadhutam Harijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Bhutta Namo Krishna Padaya Krishna Krishna Shri Mati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachari Nirvishesha Shri Bhasha Devi Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayati Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namini Gauri Krishna He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapati Gopesha Gopika Kant Tattakanchana Gaurani Shridhare Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamani Nilachalam Vasai Nityaya Parvati Balabhadra Subhadra Vancha Kalpataru Yasha Kripa Sindhu Vairavacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnaveभ्यो Namo Namaः Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasati Gaura Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Hare Rama Mukha Karoti Vachanam Shri Guru Namaste Shri Chaitanya. So we were reading the sixth chapter of first chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. I believe we read up to text 23. So today we'll begin from text 24. Tasya Pravayasha Putra Dashatesham Tuyo Ahamam Balo Narayano Nam Balo Narayano Pitaroschа Daito Krishnam That old man Achananda had 10 sons, of whom the youngest was a baby named Narayana. Since Narayana was the youngest of all his sons, he was naturally very dear to both his father and his mother. But The word Prava Yashaha indicates Ajami's sinfulness because although he was 88 years old, he had a very young child. According to Vedic culture, one should leave home as soon as he has reached 50 years of age. One should not live at home and go on producing children. Sex life is allowed for 25 years between the ages of 25 and 45, or at the most 50. After that, one should give up the habit of sex life and leave home as a vanaprastha and then properly take sannyas. Ajamin, however, because of his association with a prostitute, lost all of the manical culture. Became more sinful even in his so-called household life. Srila Prabhupada does explain in Bhagavad Gita, second chapter, that all these material facilitation which the Vedas provide, they are all very risky, and therefore one should not therefore one should not fall back or rely on those. So the concessions which are given in the Vedas are actually risky. So therefore one should not rely on them too much. Because Srila Prabhupada explains that there are accidents even on royal roads. The Vedas never allow or never give provisions for unrestricted self-gratification. They at max give regulations in such a way that one can pursue the path of regulated sense enjoyment, but also in a purified setting. But then Srila Prabhupada is making the point that even this regulated sense enjoyment is a risky affair because there can be accidents even on royal roads. And that is why all these concessions should be seen with the hope, with the perspective that is Krishna is so merciful. That even though a person is very much attached to sense gratification, still the Lord has given a way by which even such an attached soul can move towards God. So these principles are just worth When one can get inspiration, one get glimpse of the merciful nature of the Lord. But it is best not to rely and hook on and hang on around these principles because there is every chance of fall down. So that is why the hankering of a devotee is not to grab on or cling on to the concessions, but the hankering should be when will he give up. So therefore, it is explained in Bhagavatam, what Srila Prabhupada explains in 7th canto upwards. That you see the prime emphasis of Vedic life is brahmachari life, celibate life. Complete abstinence from any kind of sex activity, gross or subtle, physical or simulations. So, and then Srila Prabhupada explains that those who very staunchly and strongly practice the principles of brahmacharya, or the celibate life, then they are allowed to enter married life. Or because of that strong training, what will happen is that in some time they will move out of the married order of life and go towards vanaprastha, finally towards sannyas. So one will be able to come out. One will be able to come out provided one has very good and solid training. On account of that solid training of fixity in the Supreme. So here we learn an important principle that the concessions, the attitude, even when one is making use of a concession, is to get out of the concession. The attitude should never be to cling on to the concession. Suresh Kadamakanand Maharaj used to say that ideal healthy grahastha ashram life is what? Is when the devotee is entering the grahastha ashram and he is doing the fire sacrifice and taking his vows for grahastha life. At that time, the candidates are thinking, when will I get out of this? That is healthy. Not that, okay, how can I cling on to it? So therefore, Srila Prabhupada is explaining here that yes, Grihastha ashram may give some concession for sex life for the sake of good progeny. 45, same as 50. Not that at the fag end of one's life, one is continuing with progeny. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada explains that Ajamila's case at this juncture is very, very shameful because at 88 he had a small child whom he had named Narayan. Proceed further. Text 25. सबद्धहृदयस्तस्मिन् अर्भके कालनाशिनी
अर्भके कालनाशिनी
निरीक्ष्यमाणास्तल्लीलम्
निरीक्ष्यमाणस्तल्लीलम्
Mure Jaratho Vrisham.
Mure Jarto Trisham.
Because of the channels, spoken language, awkward words, all the Jamila was very much attached to them. Yahweh took care of the child and enjoyed the child's activities. Yeah, child's broken language and awkward movements. But it is clearly mentioned that the child Narayan was so young that he could not even speak or walk properly. Since the old man was very much attached to the child, he enjoyed the child's activities. And because the child's name was Narayan, the old man always chanted the name of Narayan. Although he was referring to the small child and not to the original Narayan. The name of Narayan is so powerful that even by chanting his son's name, he was becoming purified. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Eva Kevalam. Srila Rupa Goswami is therefore declared that if one's mind is somehow or the other attracted by the holy name of Krishna, Tasmat Kenati Payena Mana Krishna Nivasya. One is on the path of liberation. It is customary in human Hindu society for parents to give their children names like Krishnadas, Govindadas, Narayandas, Vrindavandas. Thus they chant the names of Krishna, Govinda, Narayan, and Vrindavan and get the chance to be purified. We can clearly see here how easy is the practice of devotional service and how powerful is the practice of devotional service. So basically, we understand that Maya Shakti is formidable and no doubt about it. But Krishna Shakti is even more powerful, and this Krishna Shakti is unleashed and released in the activities of devotional service. So, the point is that because the process of bhakti is so powerful, therefore the practice of the process of bhakti is not difficult. It becomes very easy. Very easily it can be integrated, very easily it can be awakened. And I say, how? Yes, Ajamila was an apt example of that. The Sajamila had become very, very sinful. He was looting, cheating, exploiting people. He had lost all Brahmanical qualities. One small little activity he added, naming his son Narayan. And because of that, he's constantly chanting Narayan, Narayan. Because of that, his heart is getting. So you see the process of bhakti is powerful, and because of its power, it is easy to integrate. Ajamil didn't do something very extraordinarily Herculean, was it? So because of his past life, the past, not past life, past years, the initial years of life training, he got a desire to name his son Narayan. That's it. And he named his son Narayan. But what a phenomenal purification and change it brought about in his own consciousness. So he's always chanting the names of Narayan, so he's getting purified and he's getting attached to the name of Narayan. So, yes, he was attached and purified. How do we know that? What is the proof? The proof is even at the moment of his death, he chanted the name Narayan. He was attached. So the whole episode depicts that, okay, that even though he was not purely chanting, still it created such a powerful effect. So it is explained by the Acharya that chanting is in three stages: Namaprad, Namabhas, and Shuddhana. Namaprad means chanting the holy names while maintaining material attachment. That is Namaprad. While committing offenses. Namabhas, that one may not be heartily chanting the holy name, but one is not having any grudge against the holy name, any aversion to the holy name. And then Shuddhana. So Srila Prabhupada explained that chanting the holy names referring to somebody other than the Supreme Lord by the means of the holy name. That very much comes under Namabhas, reflection of chanting. So Ajamil, because he did not have offensive mentality, why he didn't have offensive mentality? Because of his previous training of brahmacharya life. So he was chanting Namabhas. So Namabhas chanting itself is so powerful as to transport us to the spiritual world. What to say Shuddhana. So Sri Prabhupada specifically describes chanting the Lord's name while referring to someone else. That's how Shuddhana. Let's read further. 626. Punjanah prapiban khadan balakam sneha yandritah Bhojayan payasan mudo न वेदगतम् अन्तकम्
न वेदगतम्
When Ajamila chewed food and ate it, he called the child to chew and eat. And when he drank, he called the child to drink also. Always engage in taking care of the child and calling his name Narayan. Ajamil could not understand that his own time was now exhausted and that death was upon him. But the Supreme Personality of Godhead is so kind to the conditioned soul. Although this man completely forgot Narayan, he was calling out his child, saying, Narayan, please come eat this food. Narayan, please come drink this milk. Somehow or the other, therefore, he was attached to the name Narayan. This is called Agyat Sukriti. Although calling for his son, he was unknowingly chanting the name of Narayan. And the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is so transcendently powerful that his chanting was being counted and recorded. So, Srila Prabhupada here, as Srila Prabhupada is explaining, Agyat Sukriti is giving a higher pedestal than offensive chanting. Because in Agyat Sukriti there are no offenses. Therefore, it is much better. Although the person is not realizing and the person is not directly aware of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But there are no offenses in the stage of Agyat Sukriti. And that is the beauty of Agyat Sukriti. Although one is not directly referring to Krishna. So, it is being explained that by Agyat Sukriti one develops attraction towards the holy name of the Lord. So this Agyat Sukriti is a very beautiful tool because the person may not know and he has got purified enough. So, and in that purified state of consciousness, it is easier for a person to choose Krishna. So as devotees, we try to increase we are preaching and people's access towards Krishna. When people are very new and reluctant, they are not taking that step forward, and at least the preacher should try that everybody whom one is trying to preach, if they are not available or ready for being preached, then a preacher should always act to increase the Agyasukirti component. So that should be one of the attitudes that okay, I can help people giving Krishna, but if they are not ready for it, at least let me increase the Agyasukirti quotient in their lives. So Jamil had this Agyasukirti component. Uh, it's 627. So evam vartamano Natyukala upasthite Matim chakara tanaye Bale Narayanaadvaye When the time of death arrived for the foolish Ajamila, he began thinking exclusively of his son Narayan. Perfect. In the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 216, Sukadeva Goswami says, Etavan Sakhi Yoga Swadharma Parinishthaya Janmalabha Parapumsam Ante Narayana Smriti. The highest perfection of human life is achieved either by complete knowledge of matter and spirit, by the acquirement of mystic powers, or by perfect discharge of one's occupational duty, is to remember the personality of Godhead at the end of life. Somehow or the other, Ajamil consciously or unconsciously chanted the name of Narayan at the time of death, Ante Narayana Smriti, and therefore he became all perfect simply by concentrating his mind on the name of Narayan. It may also be concluded that Ajamila, who was the son of a Brahmana, was accustomed to worship Narayan in his youth because every Brahmana's house is worship of Narayan Shila. The system is still present in India. In a rigid Brahmana's house, there is Narayan Seva, worship of Narayan. Therefore, although the contaminated Ajamila was calling for his son, by concentrating his mind on the holy name of Narayan, he remembered Narayan. He had very faithfully worshipped in his youth. Yeah. Mm. We can clearly see in this pastime So here we can learn that Rishi, we talked about Ante Narayana Smriti. Yes. So we see here, see whatever we practice, we have put to. At times of, many times we people say that okay, the times of turmoil or the times of the hustle and bustle, they are such that the times, emergency times, such that one will forget everything. Where will one remember anything? You see, that is easily said, but we have to understand the science of remembrance is that whatever is practiced will go and we will remember that in the emergency situations of our life. So because the Jamil was practicing, heartily practicing calling out his son's name, and there was impending danger in his life, he called out his son's name. So all it is required in devotional service is regular heartly practice. That's Ante Narayana Smriti is many times being explained as a barometer, the checkpoint. But this checkpoint also is easily traversed with practice. That's why daily practice. Nityam Bhagavad Sevaya. It's very clever. Okay, so text. Did you read 27? Robert? Because the acharyas later they are explaining that the Jamal did actually remember Krishna, and this is Krishna's special mercy. So because of his previous training, when we say Krishna consciousness never lost, he never hankered for it and paid a price for it, but it was injected in by the mercy of the Lord. So it is said that because of his previous practice, when he's chanting Narayana, he was actually also started remembering Lord Narayana. And therefore, when he was dying, he was actually remembering Lord Narayana, not his son Narayana. That is all because of his previous practice. Okay, we read up to one point. Yeah. So Srila Sridhar Swami expressed his verdict as follows. Now, Etachatat Upalalana Narayana Namuchara Mahatmayena Tad Bhakti Eva Bhujati Siddhantopayo Gitvinapi Trashtapyam. According to Bhakti Siddhanta, it is to be analyzed that because Ajamal constantly chanted his son's name, Narayana, he was elevated to the platform of Bhakti. Although he did not know it. Similarly, Srila Veera Raghavacharya gives this opinion, Evam Vartamana Swadija Martyukale.
उपस्थिते सत्याग्नि नारायणाख्ये पुत्र एव मतिं चकारमति आसक्ताम् अकरोत् इति अर्थः. Although at the time of death he was chanting the name of his son, he nevertheless concentrated his mind upon the holy name of Narayan. Srila Vijayadhaj Tirtha gives a similar opinion. मृत्युकाले देहवयोगलक्षणः काले मृत्युसर्वदोषपापहरस्य हरे अनुग्रहात् काले दत्ताज्ञानलक्षणे उपस्थिते हृदि प्रकाशिते तनये पूर्णज्ञाने बले पञ्चवर्षकल्पे प्रदेशमात्रे नारायणात् मूर्तिविशेषमतिं स्मरणसमर्थं चित्तं चकार भक्त्या स्मरादिति अर्थः. Directly or indirectly, Ajam factually remembered Narayan at the time of death. So here, so beautifully the Acharya would explain that how Ajamila had started remembering the Supreme Lord. Because of his previous practice, Krishna gave him such a fame.
Saying that the company is not going to give up our selfish mentality in favor of doing what is best for the Krishna consciousness. Your goal in life should be to serve as directed by your guru, not that you force your guru to approve your stay in a particular way. समझ गया आपने?
So, we cannot even imagine the power and the mercy which is embedded in these practices of devotion and service. Therefore, our lives can become meaningful and successful only if we hardwire our lives in such a way that it only flows and goes in the directionalities, in the directions, in the roadways of the principles, actions, activities of devotional service. So Ajamil's chanting is reviving the efficacy or reviving or awakening the power of his previous chanting. That is why the Acharyas say that one should never slacken the activities of devotional service. Whether one is feeling ecstatic, whether one is feeling monotonous, whether one is feeling saturated, whether one is not having any feelings, it does not matter. What matters is whether we are continuing with the activities of devotional service. Many times mood is not in our hands. So therefore you see the holy name chanted explodes. In due course of time. So Jamin had been chanting in the prime of his youth, but that holy name which he was chanting did not explode when he was faced with the scene of the prostitute. But does it mean that that chanting was of no use? Not at all. Its efficacy exploded at a much later stage, but it did. So this is the point. Therefore, it is very important to continue the activities of devotional service. Everyday morning program, the chanting, the Bhagavatam, the reading Srila Prabhupada books. Feelings, moods, these are abstract terminologies. One should not rely on them. That's the whole point. Because you see, on one hand, because when we do the activities of devotional service, even if they may not have been done with the highest transcendental fervor, in due course of time, these activities fructify. So when we are performing these activities of devotional service, then we are putting them inside our locker. In due course of time, we fructify. One fructifies the other. Is it? Jamal's previous chanting is fructified by his mindless chanting at this point of time. Like that.
Why?
Mindless chanting. He was not referring to Krishna at all.
When
So therefore, when he's about to die now, similarly, one's mindless or monotonous or mechanical chanting will also fructify at a later stage when one is still chanting. So therefore, the investment in chanting is the best investment.
but if you chant mindless and inattentively, in between phase of Adam's death was very horrible. So we should not think of it.
So the first principle is to chant, whether with the mind or without the mind or hell with the mind. Whether with intelligence, without intelligence, or kick off the intelligence, chant. Therefore, a devotee should never mind the amount of restlessness, distractions, obstinacy, rebelliousness which the mind and intelligence may pose. But one should not give up the activity. So therefore the acharyas explain, we are feeling ecstatic, we are chanting, very good. But the real test, the real day is when we are feeling miserable, do we still chant? That is the test. That day will make the most amount of advance. So when one is feeling ecstatic, anybody can chant, but one is feeling miserable, then one who chants will get the real mercy of chanting, the real Farashti. That is the point. Let's read further.
Actually क्या होता है जब youngest child के time है ना उसके नाम लेने के time में तो भगवान के परमहंस भक्त उस एरिया से जा रहे थे तो तब अजावे इधर के नहीं था और जानवी की बाइक और वो बच्चा तब वो वहाँ पर साधुओं के टच में आया था तब वो साधु नाम रखे थे कि नारायण रखना एक्चुअली साधु की कृपा
Yes. So yes, Krishna does send help, and that Ajamil was able to accept it and apply it at this junction. That was also because of his previous devotional service. Favorable situation was achieved, was given to Ajamila. That is also because of his previous devotional service, and he could accept that favorable situation in a favorable way. That is also his.
The chanting will never go in vain,
Yes.
but if you don't restrain, then there will be a lot of pain before you achieve the ultimate gain.
Obviously, every living entity has to pay the price for his or her own choices. But the recommendation of the acharyas is that because one has a lot of conditionings and the mind is out of control, someday one will feel a lot of taste, someday one will feel not no taste. The day one feels poisonous, that day one should chant extra. That day, if one continues to chant with the same enthusiasm and struggle, that day one is going to get 10 times the more mercy than the day when one is feeling ecstasy. That is why the fixity of activities is the foolproof way, which can tame the mind slowly and slowly. Let's read further. 28, 29. Sapashahastam chandrishtva purushanati daruna vakratundan urdhvaromna atmanam netumagatam दूरे क्रीडना कासक्ता पुत्रा नारायण अहभयम् लभितेन स्वरेणु आजुहाव कुलेन्द्रियः Ajamila then saw three awkward persons with deformed bodily features, fierce, twisted faces, and hair standing erect on their bodies. With ropes in their hands, they had come to take him away to the abode of Yamaraj. When he saw them, he was extremely bewildered, and because of his attachment to his child who was playing a short distance away, Ajamal began to call him loudly by his name. Thus, with tears in his eyes, he somehow or the other chanted the holy name of Narayan. Perfect. A person who performs sinful activities performs them with his body, mind, and words. Therefore, three order carriers from Yamaraj came to take Ajamil to Yamaraj's abode. Fortunately, even though he was referring to his son, Ajamil chanted the four syllables of the Harinam Narayan. And therefore, the order carriers of Narayan, the Vishnudutas, also immediately arrived there. So, because Ajamila was extremely afraid of the ropes of Yamaraj, he chanted the Lord's name with tearful eyes. Actually, however, he never meant to chant the holy name of Narayan. He meant to call his son. Yes. Yes. Same thing. But Namabhas is defined by Srila Prabhupada as chanting, referring to somebody other than the Lord. That is Namabhas. Aparadhanam.
Now what to do when we are trying to avoid it?
Yeah.
Why it is still used to not because we are not.
Yeah, because we are still attached to mental sense gratification.
Because it's named ended only for together as Krishna.
Yes. Namabhas also includes those cases where the person is only formally wording out Krishna's name, but mind and heart is calling for sense gratification. So that is also the same thing, like Ajamil referring to his child but calling Krishna's name. So the mind and desires are hooked to, and that is the actual call. And formally, one is calling Krishna. It's Navamhas. Yeah. So in Shuddhana,
In Chitana,
in Shuddhana, there are no facades. From the deepest core of one's existence, one is calling out to the world. And there is no other reality other than the call of the holy name. That's Shuddhana. So that is why mechanical chanting is at best or namabhas if one is not crossing over the offenses. So many times we'll see these offenses they manifest after some time or some amount of practice. It's just like a child takes birth, then this new birth candidate will manifest all his or her previous sanskaras in some time, not immediately on birth. Let's read further. Okay, so we read the purpose of 28, 28, 29. So we'll go to text 30 then. Nishamya Mriyamanasya Mukato Harikirtana Bharturnama Maharaja Parshada Sahasapatan. My dear king, the other carriers of Vishnu, the Vishnudutas, immediately arrived and they heard the holy name of their master from the mouth of the dying Ajamila, who had suddenly chanted without offense because he chanted in complete anxiety. But Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur remarks, Hari Kirtana Nishamya Patan Katam Bhutasya Bharatur Nama Bhupataha. The order carriers of Lord Vishnu came because Ajamila had chanted the holy name of Narayan. They did not consider why he was chanting. While chanting the name of Narayana, Ajamil was actually thinking of his son, but simply because they heard Ajamil chanting the Lord's name, the order carriers of Lord Vishnu, the Vishnudutas, immediately came for Ajamil's protection. Hari Kirtana is actually meant to glorify the holy name, form, pastimes, and qualities of the Lord. Ajamil, however, did not glorify the form, qualities, or paraphernalia of the Lord. He simply chanted the holy name. Nevertheless, that chanting was sufficient to cleanse him of all the sinful activities. As soon as the Vishnudutas heard their master's name being chanted, they immediately came. In this regard, Srila Vijayadhvaj Tirtha remarks, yes. As soon as the Vishnudutas heard their master's name being chanted, they immediately came. In this regard, Srila Vijayadhvaj Tirtha remarks, Anena putra sneham antarena prachena drishta balat udbhutaya भक्त्या भगवान नाम संकीर्तनाम कृतम इति नायते श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा महाराज श्री लक्ष्मी महाराज श्री गोपाल की। Ajamal chanted the name of Narayana because of his excessive attachment to his son. Nevertheless, because of his past good fortune in having rendered devotional service to Narayana, he apparently chanted the holy name in full devotional service and without offenses. So we can imagine and understand again the power and mercy of Bhakti Yoga, the process of Bhakti. See, what is the power and mercy? You see, the power and mercy is even mechanical practice of bhakti has the power to invoke feelings and knowledge and awareness. That is the beauty of the process of bhakti. Even mechanical chanting can invoke the feelings and the heart. Because we see that the falashruti of bhakti, automatic gifts which come along with bhakti are jnana and vairagya. One doesn't have to endeavor separately for them. They manifest on their own. In the same way, even if one continues to mechanically and superficially chant and practice, he will, if he continues, he won't remain superficial. So therefore, it is most important to continue the practices of devotion. Because the power of bhakti is what even mechanical practice will invoke feelings and heart. That is the point. Let's read further. Yes.
So in this case, it will take a lot of time to do mechanically.
You should try to do it with full heart. And after putting all one's heart and energy, if one is not able to cross beyond, but whatever understandings and feelings one has, one reposes it in Krishna, that feeling and understanding grows. That's the idea. So therefore, under no circumstances should one let down. Yeah. Etc. विकर्षतो अंतर हृदया काशीपतिम् अजामिलम् Yes. यमप्रेष्यान् विष्णुदूता वारयाम् असुरोजसा The outer carriers of Yamaraj were snatching the soul from the core of the heart of Ashamila, the husband of the prostitute. With resounding voices, the messengers of Lord Vishnu, the Vishnu Dutas, yeah, but with resounding voices, the messengers of Lord Vishnu, Vishnu Dutas forbade them to do it. A Vaishnava who has surrendered to the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu is always protected by the Lord Vishnu's order carriers. Because Ajamil had chanted the holy name of Narayana, the Vishnu Dutas not only immediately arrived on the spot, but also at once ordered the Yamadutas not to touch him. By speaking with resounding voices, the Vishnu Dutas threatened to punish the Yamadutas if they continued trying to snatch Ajamil's soul from his heart. The order carriers of Yamaraj have justification, jurisdiction, over all the sinful living entities. But the messengers of Lord Vishnu, the Vishnu Dutas, are capable of punishing anyone, including Yamaraj, if he wrongs a Vaishnava. Materialistic scientists do not know where to find the soul within the body of their medical instruments. But this verse clearly explains that the soul is within the core of the heart, Hridaya, and it is from the heart that the Yamadutas were extracting the soul of Ajamil. Similarly, we learn that the Supreme Lord Vishnu is also situated within the heart. Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Hrideshe Arjuna Drishyati. In the Upanishad, it is said that the super soul and the individual soul are living in the same tree of the body as two friendly birds. The super soul is said to be friendly because the Supreme Personality of God is so kind. So, because the Supreme Personality of God is so kind to the original soul, that when the original soul transmigrates from one body to another, the Lord goes with it. Furthermore, according to the desire and karma of the individual soul, the Lord, through the agency of Maya, creates another body for him. The heart of the body is a mechanical arrangement. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 1861, yes, it's Bhagavad Gita 1861. Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart for humans and is directing the wanderings of the living entities who are seated as on a machine made of the metal elements. Yantra means machine, such as an automobile. The driver of the machine of the body is the individual soul, who is also its director or proprietor, but the supreme proprietor is the supreme personality of Godhead. One's body is created through the agency of Maya, Karmana Deva Netrena. And according to one's activities in this life, at the appropriate time, one's next body is immediately chosen, and both the individual soul and the super soul transfer to that particular bodily machine. This is the proof of transmigration. Yeah. During transmigration from one body to the next, the soul is taken by the order carriers of Yamaraj and put into a particular kind of hellish life in order to become accustomed to the condition to which he will live in his next body. Yeah. Uchurnishetitastam ste Vaivasvata Purasaraha Keyuyam Pratishetaro Dharmarajasya Shashanam. And the order carriers of Yamaraj, the son of the sun god, were thus forbidden. They replied, who are you, sir, that has the audacity to challenge the jurisdiction of the Yamaraj? So according to the sinful activities of Ajamila, he was within the jurisdiction of Yamaraj, the supreme judge appointed to consider the sins of the living entities. When forbidden to touch Ajamila, the order carriers of Yamaraj were surprised because they had never before been hindered in the execution of their duty by anyone within the three worlds. Okay, so let's stop here for today. We'll continue further in our next class. Consultation Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Hey,